Listen, here's the part nobody wants to hear. In the quiet corners of modern life, solitude has become the rational refuge for men. Scan the room, high-performing men, handsome men, thoughtful men, sitting alone for years, not months. Before you rage type a rebuttal, ask yourself this. When was the last time you saw a truly happy couple under 35? Not curated for Instagram, actually content. Take a second. You're struggling to name one, aren't you? There's a reason. We engineered a world where isolation isn't rebellion, it's insurance. It's like choosing to walk rather than climb into a car with a 70% chance of crashing. The math no longer works, costs multiplied, upside shrank. Men who run numbers for a living now run them on love, and the spreadsheet spits out red. Stay single, keep your peace, protect your future. Cold conclusions perhaps, but conclusions reached by logic, not bitterness. If that unsettles you, good. Discomfort is often the first honest signal. The question isn't why some men sit alone, it's why the game they're offered looks rigged from the opening move. Picture a casino, velvet roped, labelled love. The buy-in is brutal. Your savings, your emotional stability, half your future earnings, and your mental health on collateral. The dealer smiles and recites the record. 7 in 10 lose everything. Among the 3 who win, half later admit the prize wasn't worth the price. Would you sit? Rational minds don't. Yet this is exactly how modern relationships feel to many men. High risk, asymmetric returns. Then we feign confusion about why they stay home. It isn't cowardice, it's risk management. Men aren't withdrawing from intimacy, they're withdrawing from bad odds. And when the house keeps taking a larger rake while the jackpot shrinks, the smart player steps away from the table. Call it cynicism if you like, but markets call it discipline. When the expected value is negative, exit is wisdom. That's the unglamorous truth. Romance sold itself like a lottery ticket, while quietly rewriting the payout rules. Risk minus reward equals wisdom to walk. I spoke with my cousin last week, 34, fit, solvent, well-dressed, steady. He hasn't dated in 3 years. His words landed like gravel. Every app feels like a job board I'm unqualified for. The listing reads like parody. Minimum height 6'2", income top 5%, own property in multiple countries, speak 4 languages, comedian's timing, athlete's frame, therapist bandwidth, desired experience, mind reader. It's not seduction, it's procurement. And procurement breeds audits, not affection. Scroll, match, perform, fail, repeat. When courtship is framed like enterprise hiring, you don't get love, you get compliance anxiety. He lifts, he works, he contributes. Still, the interview never ends. And here's the hook. If the only men considered are statistical outliers, the system teaches average women to treat average men as invisible. That's not romance, that's algorithmic delusion. And the bill arrives as loneliness dressed like standards. He laughed, but the laugh was tired. Dating feels like performance before judges who never smile. He isn't bitter, just bored with auditions. When every chat is a test with hidden grading, exit beckons. Here's the rougher edge. Many have confused worth with wish lists, pricing themselves like luxury because the seat covers look new. I remember a girl from a coffee shop, broke, 4 roommates, maybe $200 to her name, yet the man must bring a house, a luxury car, vacations abroad, and infinite entertainment on demand. I asked gently, "What matches all that?" She smiled. "I'm the prize." The prize for what? Attendance? This mindset isn't rare, it's fashionable. Can't cook, want a chef. Drowning in debt, want a millionaire. When you design a game where only one side can win, the other side stops playing. Men aren't fleeing responsibility, They're refusing rigged rules. They're not angry. They're absent. And absence is a quieter, sharper verdict. Once effort no longer maps to reward, exit becomes the sane, unsentimental answer. Standards became theatre, and theatre demands applause without effort. The market responds in the only way markets can, by withdrawing bids and letting the price correct itself. They've watched friends lose homes, custody, and hope in courtrooms. They've seen decent men mocked for not being enough. They scroll past clips bragging about foodie calls and WhatsApp playbooks on maximising extraction for minimal effort. Then hear the same voices ask where the good men went. They went home. They built reliable worlds where effort pays, careers, craft, iron friendships. But here's the toxin beneath it all. Not merely inflated demands, but the erasure of what men do contribute. A man can grind 60 hours, pay the bills, fix what breaks, stay emotionally steady, remember anniversaries, plan tenderness, and still be told it's the bare minimum. My grandfather fed a family of 5 on one salary, and my grandmother honoured him for it. Today, you need a fortune just to earn a thank you. And even that gratitude arrives stapled to conditions. When appreciation is rationed, generosity dies. When respect is taxed, presence evaporates. Gratitude became scarce, so presence followed. Run a tiny experiment. Type, "men are trash," watch the applause. Type, "women are trash," watch it vanish beneath bans and labels. We've normalised sneering at an entire sex, then act shocked when that sex opts out. Spit in someone's face daily, and ask why he won't meet for lunch. I coached a quiet 28-year-old developer, $80,000 a year, patient, earnest. He took a girl to the restaurant she chose. She filmed the food, tagged the venue, never him. He was a wallet with a steering wheel. Conversation slid off her screen like rain off glass. At the end she sighed. This was boring, and left without a thank you. $150 to become a background prop in someone else's content. The next day, she posted that men don't know how to date and asked where the romantics went. The cognitive dissonance could power a city. The bill, as always, is mail to the man. The lesson lands. Men go quiet. She turned the date into a stage performance for strangers online. Filters, angles, validation. Not a spark of interest. Not a real sentence exchanged. When it ended, she called him boring. That's the climate we live in. Attention replacing affection. Content replacing connection. Let's talk about something no one wants to dissect. The housing myth. Picture this. A young lady sharing a tiny apartment with 5 roommates, sleeping on a floor mattress, surviving on instant noodles, yet rejecting a man because he doesn't own property. It's like someone who can't swim, demanding to date only Olympic champions. The delusion is operatic. In most cities, maybe 5% of men under 35 own a home, 95% disqualified on entry. And then comes the lament. Where are all the good men? The arithmetic collapses before it starts. You can't build relationships on spreadsheets, written in fantasy ink. I once knew a girl, call her Anna. For 5 years she rejected every man who came close. Not tall enough, not rich enough, not thrilling enough. She literally kept an Excel file. Height minimum 6 feet, salary minimum 100 grand, 10 countries travelled, graduate degree $40,000 car. She earned 30. Now she's 35, lowering her standards daily, like prices at a clearance sale. Yesterday's must-haves become today's nice-to-have, tomorrow's maybe. The tragedy. The men she once wanted now date 25-year-olds who never spent a decade treating affection like a disposable luxury. Time never negotiates, it only collects. Father Time remains undefeated. And then comes the myth of independence. You've seen it. Loud proclamations of self-sufficiency from people still borrowing money for weekend parties. The truly independent, quiet, competent, self-contained don't post about it every 5 minutes. They simply live it. But the sloganized version screams, "I don't need a man," while quietly hoping one proves otherwise. It's like someone who can't afford a car, claiming they prefer walking. Everyone recognizes the cope, including them. Deep down, the echo of their own doubt is deafening. Biology, though inconvenient, never lost its authority. I see it every week. Women at 22 declaring, "I don't need anyone, I'm focusing on me." At 28, "I'm ready, but only if he fits the checklist, 47 points minimum." At 33, "Where did all the good men go?" At 38, "I'll date anyone with a pulse who texts back." It's the same film looping endlessly. Different actors, same ending. The tragedy isn't fate, it's scheduling. The window doesn't close out of cruelty, it closes out of mathematics. Here's the paradox. Many could have had good men at 25, but traded them for the illusion of freedom. Finding themselves, they called it, usually at the bottom of another cocktail. Men, meanwhile, were watching, learning. They saw the pattern, and markets adapt. Why would a successful 35-year-old man choose a peer loaded with resentment, fading energy, and a past she won't discuss, when a younger woman still greets love with curiosity instead of cynicism? Call it misogyny if you need to, but economists would call it market correction. Reality doesn't bend to feelings, it bankrupts them. You can boycott truth, but truth keeps charging interest. Social media poured gasoline on delusion. Every girl now believes she deserves the top 1% because she matched with one once. He was likely married, scrolling in boredom while his wife slept. But that digital flicker became her new baseline. It's like winning $20 on a slot machine and calling yourself a professional gambler. Algorithms aren't mirrors. They're hallucinations. They don't show you what's real, only what keeps you swiping. The irony, the more validation you get, the less intimacy you can feel. The slot machine wins every time. Meanwhile, men's expectations have never been lower. The average guy doesn't demand perfection, just peace. Someone pleasant, loyal, stable, someone who doesn't start a new war every week, doesn't treat loyalty like a hobby, keeps herself healthy, and actually likes him. Not the status, not the salary. Him, that's all. Not a supermodel, not a saint, not a 1950s caricature, just reciprocity. But somehow, even that sounds revolutionary. Modern love has been turned into HR policy, complete with emotional audits and quarterly reviews. Men are done applying for unpaid internships in someone else's fantasy corporation, and here's where the backlash folds in on itself. The shaming stopped working. Call a man incel for having standards, he shrugs. Mock him for not approaching. He thanks you for saving him a lawsuit. Tell him he's not a real man because he refuses to date chaos. He smiles and checks his investment portfolio. The moral leverage evaporated. The insult economy crashed. Because solitude, once feared, has become an upgrade. Being alone no longer feels like exile. It feels like ownership. What men actually fear isn't commitment, it's captivity. Commitment to the wrong person. The one who drains the soul and leaves with the spoils. I saw it 5 years ago, at a wedding that cost a small fortune. The groom's smile looked less like joy, more like surrender. His bride spent the reception waging war on details. The wrong shade of flowers, cake too sweet, DJ off tempo. Never once did she glance at him with love. Never once did she whisper gratitude. 6 months later, they divorced. She kept the ring, the photos, the online applause. He kept the debt and the silence. Tell me again why men are hesitant. They aren't afraid of love. They're afraid of asymmetry, of betting everything in a game where only the dealer wins. So when men withdraw, it's not cowardice, it's clarity. They've studied the market, read the fine print, calculated the risk, and now they're choosing differently. You can label that fear if it makes you comfortable, but to them, it's mathematics. One bad investment can ruin a lifetime portfolio, and some lessons are too expensive to repeat. Here's what almost no woman grasps about male loneliness. It isn't agony anymore, it's adaptation. Men have evolved past it, the way wolves evolve thicker fur in winter. Feel the cold, build warmth, need affection. There are substitutes that don't argue, or demand tribute through credit cards, need companionship. Dogs listen better and stay. Need emotional support? Brotherhood filled the vacuum, men realizing their peace comes from each other, not the court of female approval. Need meaning, work, discipline, creation, things that don't betray you halfway through the story. Loneliness used to be a wound, now it's armor. We didn't dissolve under the silence, we engineered tools to thrive inside it. What was once a bug became a feature, quiet, efficient, indestructible. Meanwhile, look at the opposite side. Women in their 30s and 40s collapsing under the weight of solitude they swore would liberate them. Wine glasses raised like trophies. Memes about self-care masking panic. Cat photos captioned as empowerment. They bought the dream that time would wait, that they could seize it all later. No one warned them that men would simply stop auditioning. They thought life was a mall, chase pleasure through their 20s, build careers in their 30s, then select a husband off the shelf when the mood strikes. But the lights flickered, the store closed, and the sale ended years ago. Now they stand outside, faces pressed to glass, wondering when the doors will reopen. Dating apps poured acid on an already fragile system. Average girls now swim in digital oceans of attention and call it power. 500 matches a week. She feels like Cleopatra at court. Yet the men who swipe right barely look. For them, it's a numbers game. For her, it feels like worship. But it's not love, not even interest. It's algorithmic roulette. That dopamine loop is addictive. Why choose one when 100 message daily? Because none of them want her. They want moments, not meaning, pleasure, not partnership. When the high fades, she's left scrolling. Validation as currency, emptiness as interest due. I tell younger men, exit the casino. The deck is rigged. Would you play poker when the dealer sees your cards? The rules change mid-hand, and the house takes half your winnings if you walk away. That's dating apps for the average man. You're competing against avatars, rented cars, fake abs, borrowed watches, virtual vacations. And if you win, what's the prize? A young lady who thinks she's settled. A partner haunted by ghosts of imaginary better options. That's not love. It's a prison dressed in perfume. Walk away before the sentence begins. Freedom isn't lonely, it's clarity. Traditional meeting grounds, burn to ash. Try talking to someone at work. Risk HR complaints. At the gym, instant creep label. Photo posted online. At a bar, you're a predator. She's just dancing. With her girls. On the street. Harassment. Online. 1 in hundreds buried in her inbox, yet in the same breath. Why don't men approach anymore? Where did confidence go? It's like wiring alarms to every door, and then mourning the silence of visitors. You can't criminalize pursuit and then crave romance. Here's a language men understand. Investment. Risk versus return. Stocks can crash, yes, but the potential gain justifies the gamble. Relationships? High risk, guaranteed loss. Imagine buying into a company that burns your savings, blames you for its failure, and then demands half your remaining assets as it leaves. What rational investor signs that contract? Men didn't stop loving. They stopped funding bad ventures. When every partnership feels like liability exposure, abstention becomes the smart portfolio move. Double standards line the walls like graffiti nobody bothers to clean. A girl demands 6'2", empowerment. A man prefers slim, misogyny. She wants wealth, knowing her worth. He wants youth, predator. She refuses short men, her preference. He refuses single mothers, immature coward. The rules bend one way only, and the referee applauds. The hypocrisy isn't hidden, it's celebrated. Modern dating has become moral theatre, and men are the designated villains regardless of script. Underneath the noise sits the psychology. Simple, brutal. Women are told they're perfect as is. You're a queen, never change, never settle. Men are told they're defective. Improve yourself. Be better. You're not enough. One sex marinated in self-worship, the other in self-critique. The outcome was predictable. You can't hand eternal praise to one side and perpetual homework to the other and expect balance. One becomes entitled, the other exhausted. Cause and effect doesn't negotiate, it just delivers consequences. I came across a real study, not some meme. Women rated 80% of men as below average in attractiveness. Mathematically impossible, yet emotionally revealing. It's not statistics, it's psychology. The average woman believes the average man is beneath her. And then we feign surprise when marriages crumble, when dating feels like trench warfare, when birth rates nosedive. You can't build civilization on contempt and call it equality. So who still wins? The men who stopped caring, the ones who detached from the approval economy. They see female validation for what it is, volatile currency backed by nothing. They treat drama like weather, inevitable, but not worth rearranging your life for. Ironically, that indifference magnetizes more attraction than genuine devotion ever did. The men who'd make the best partners are invisible. The ones who treat love as sport dominate the field. That's not romance, it's behavioral economics. Supply chases scarcity. Scarcity chases coldness. Humanity gets lost in the feedback loop. Consequences don't read think pieces. They don't care who's offended or who cried online. They just arrive, on time, without mercy. Now women in their 40s face the bill. The men they dismissed in their 20s, married, or content, or simply free. Their former standards, expired. Their old charm, unremarkable. The market spoke in plain language. No thank you. And so the anger turns outward, against men for leaving, against time for moving, against truth for telling. But resentment doesn't rewind clocks. It just makes the ticking louder. The silence men now live in isn't despair, it's design. It's the sound of a gender that stopped pleading for fairness and started building fortresses of focus instead. Loneliness turned into architecture, solid, functional, unbreakable. The solution? There isn't one, not a neat cinematic one. This is the bed civilization made, and we're all lying in it. Women won't loosen their expectations until silence answers them, and by then, men will have stopped listening. Why chase a game where every rule punishes the player? They won't. Birth rates will keep diving. Loneliness will keep rising like a tide no one bothered to warn about. 20 years from now, we'll call this era the good old days. Back when at least a few people still pretended to try. So here's the unromantic advice for men. Redirect your energy inward. Build the empire of you. Wealth, health, peace. If a woman fits inside that architecture, wonderful. If she doesn't, your structure stands unshaken. For women, question whether your standards are anchored in life or in the hallucinations of social media. Most won't. They rarely do, until the silence becomes unbearable. Then the blame shifts outward, always outward. This loop will keep spinning until pain exceeds pride. Until women realize that realism isn't surrender, it's survival. Until men admit that some women are worth the work, just not most. Until society whispers the forbidden thought, maybe our grandparents weren't archaic. Maybe they simply understood what worked. Let me illustrate with a scene. A bar, a Friday night, the usual noise. Beside us, a table of young ladies, late 20s, early 30s, air thick with complaints. Men are trash, one declares. None commit. Phones glow. One opens Tinder to prove her case. Thousands of matches. She scrolls. Too short, too plain, too poor. Probably boring. Probably inadequate. Each dismissal followed by another drink. Then, without irony, she sighs. Why can't I find a decent man? The contradiction could light a city block. They mistake abundance for quality, attention for affection, ego for love. The algorithm keeps feeding them ghosts and calling it destiny. Watch closely, and you'll notice a pattern. The loudest voices lamenting male inadequacy often bring the least to offer. It's projection, wearing lipstick, minimum wage job but dreaming of CEOs, can't cook but wants a chef, out of shape but wants an athlete, drowning in debt but demanding wealth, carrying storms but demanding peace, every contradiction dressed as empowerment. Point this out, and suddenly you're a misogynist afraid of strong women. No, strength is admirable. Delusion is not. Watching Netflix is not a personality trait. Entitlement is not depth. And calling decay liberation doesn't make it smell like roses. The fallout isn't abstract. It lands on the young. 18 and 19-year-old men writing to me, already defeated. They haven't lived yet, but they've seen enough. Their brothers bankrupted by divorce, their fathers drained by courts, their friends mocked for sincerity. They see good men turned into cautionary tales, and they choose withdrawal over humiliation. Can you blame them? When every road forward looks mined, standing still feels like wisdom. Hope is a luxury the market no longer sells at retail. Here's a concept I call the backup plan delusion. Many women spend their 20s collecting experiences and call it empowerment, convinced they can settle down later with a nice guy. But that nice guy they ghosted at 23, he isn't waiting. He moved on. Either he found someone who valued him, or he discovered the serenity of self-sufficiency. He has money, hobbies, freedom. Why would he trade autonomy for being someone's consolation prize? Security doesn't bargain with disrespect. Then there's the financial theatre of modern love. The script goes like this. Women demand traditional provision, but reject traditional reciprocity. They want you to fund everything, but share the chores. They want your leadership, but veto your authority. They want your wallet, not your wisdom. It's like appointing a CEO and forbidding him to make decisions. Who signs that contract? Who volunteers to bankroll contempt? Every generation of men asks the same question, a little louder. I once counselled a man, early 40s, self-made, balanced. His girlfriend of 2 years left after he suggested they split vacation 50-50. She earned $90,000 a year, drove a BMW, preached equality until the bill arrived. Then equality dissolved into outrage. A real man pays for everything, she said, as if prosperity were proof of masculinity. He wasn't stingy, he was sane. But sanity apparently is unromantic. This is the programming, deep, sticky, generational. Even men who see the pattern still wrestle with instinct. We're wired to protect, to provide. But protect what? Provide for whom? for the influencer who hashtags men are trash, for the partner who keeps backups on her phone, like spare batteries, for someone who views you as an accessory instead of an ally. The cost outweighs the return, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, and men finally have done the math. What no one discusses is the serenity that fills the void once you stop apologizing for it. The quiet apartment after work, no arguments looping at midnight, no emotional whiplash masquerading as passion. You open the door and own everything inside it. Time, money, mind. Want a motorcycle? Buy it. Want to disappear into a weekend of silence, gaming or trading crypto? Do it. No negotiations, no cold shoulders. This isn't loneliness, it's sovereignty. It's what freedom sounds like when you stop mistaking chaos for connection. So, yes, men are remaining single for years, some for life, and women, in aggregate, are the reason. Not all, but enough to shift the balance beyond repair. Until they confront that truth collectively, nothing will reset. Men have already adapted. Evolution doesn't wait for consensus. The solitude once feared has become strategy. The only question left is the one few dare to ask: can women handle the silence they created? Because from here, the answer looks brutally simple. They can't. Every birthday candle that burns down is a reminder. Their options shrink, ours expand. That isn't vengeance, it's mathematics. And like mathematics, reality doesn't negotiate, it simply remains undefeated.